everyone. Well, the tide is on the way in, and I came down here not knowing what I was going to find today, and I've had a bit of a pipe day. It's been a real pipe patrol day and it's been very successful. So today I'm going to show you the pipes that I found, and there are a few of them, and also a few other things that I found during a couple of mudlarking outings over the last couple of weeks. So a nice little mixture of objects with some great history that the tide has thrown out. My eye was just caught by something down here, which you might be able to see. There it is. It looks like a really interesting button. I can see an anchor. So let's have a closer look. Yep, it's a button. You know what? I haven't seen one like this before. It's really pretty. It's got one large anchor and two little anchors either side. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? I wonder what that's from. And there's clearly a maker's mark on the back as well, so we'll be able to see who made it, and that might give us an idea then of the kind of date we're looking at. But that's really lovely. Really nice. 3 anchors. A button with 3 anchors. So I'm just wandering along, and I glanced down and I saw one of my favourite types of finds. I think you can probably guess what it is, and it's just down here. I'm going to see if you can spot it as well. I'll zoom in very slowly. Can you see it? There it is. It's a nice 18th century pipe bowl sticking out of the mud, and of course the question is, how much stem is there? I haven't moved it yet, so I have no idea. So let's see. Oh, there we go. I mean, it's not terribly long, but it's got a nice bit of stem on it. It doesn't have a maker's mark, but that's a beautiful pipe, probably from around about, I don't know, the mid-1700s. Now I've just spotted another pipe. Looks like it's going to be a pipe day. So here we are, look, here it is. I just scraped it off. I thought it was a stone at first. So there's the bowl, nestled there into the mud. And we know it's not just a bowl because it's not just coming out like that. So I wonder how much stem there is. Look at that. Heavens, so that's from about 1750, so what are we now, 1850, 1950, so, you know, 200 years, at least 200 and something years, that pipe has been in there. It hasn't probably been touched since the last person who smoked it. And there we are, look. Look at that. And it's all black because it's been in the mud for so long, but once out of the mud it does fade back to its original colour, and I don't clean them with anything. I just let them fade back because I want them to look old. I don't want them to look like I've just bought them. Nice little piece of pottery here. It's a shame it's broken. It's got part of a coat of arms on it there, look. Look, this looks interesting, doesn't it? What's this? It's like a glass dome on top of a brass round thing, for want of a better description. Yeah, here we go. It's just like the end of a, maybe an end of a magnifying glass or something. Isn't that nice?
So back on pipe patrol, I've just seen this time a bit of stem poking out of the mud, just here. And I've given it a little sort of testing out, just prodded it a bit with my trowel, and it's not moving. It doesn't feel like one with nothing on the end. In fact, it feels really well embedded in there. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a bowl on the end. So this is exciting. I think there will be. So place your bets now. Look at that. I wonder how far down that goes. I wonder how far down that goes. This mud is so sticky, it's very clay-like, so it's not surprising that they are preserved for so long, so well, because it's just such a perfect little cushion for them. Yeah, now that is so well embedded in there. There's definitely going to be something on the end, so I'm going to turn the camera off because I'm not going to find it very easy to do this with my left hand, and I shall come back when I'm a little further down. Here's a progress report. Still going down. It's going to be a nice long stem on this baby, and it's still not budging. So I'm going to keep on going. Okay, we're still going down, look. And I will say I've gone well over my 7.5 centimetres that I'm allowed to scrape down with the PLA permit, but I'm not going to walk away and leave this pipe in there, am I? But I can see a bowl now, so that's a relief. And I'm going to do a last little scrape, and then I'll be back to show you it. And here we have it, look. Isn't it interesting that that pipe was vertical like that, straight down in that mud, like that, for years and years. Again, it's another 18th century pipe, covered in mud, so let's give it a little rinse off. Here. I wonder who the last person was who touched it and what they were thinking when they were smoking, before they just tossed it away. There we are. And look, actually, as I'm washing it off, I can see a bit of pipe stem in there as well. That's a real beauty. Just look at that. Just look at that. And again, that will fade nicely eventually, probably by the end of the day. Look over there, it's more keys. There's always so many keys down here. Let's have a look. Let's see. Oh, look. Isn't that funny? I found Nan's keys a few weeks ago, and these are Mum's keys. They're not like Nan's keys, are they? Okay, so here is another one. Can you see it? Can you see it just down there? Pipe patrol is going really well today. Let's have a closer look at this one. Oh, this one might have a little design on it actually. I can feel some raised edges on the bowl. Now, I'm wondering if it might be a Masonic pipe bowl. Let's see, this is exciting. Exciting! Oh, and there's a bit of length on it too. Look at this one, is a real beauty. Look at it. Oh my, look at that. Yes, I think it's Masonic. Let's go and give it a little wash. I mean, it's great finding any pipes, but when there's a design on it, it's even more exciting because then you can find out just that little bit more. And this one's in remarkably good condition. Really good condition. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm thinking this is a Masonic pipe bowl. It's probably sort of early 19th century. I just saw a piece of pottery sticking out of the mud here. Pulled it out to find another delightful little scene. Look, just look at that, isn't it beautiful? I've just uncovered a piece of pottery, and it's really unusual because I found some like very similar to this the other day, just near a fort. This is beautiful. I don't think it's the same actually, but it's quite similar. But look at this, this is gorgeous. It's got an anchor on it. A ship. Wow, how lovely. Let's give it a little wash. I found a piece which I will show you now actually. With two soldiers firing a gun. It looked kind of similar in design, but I'm not certain that it is. This looks like some kind of battle, maybe. How beautiful. It really is better sometimes just finding a piece of pottery or a fragment of a picture, because then you have to imagine what the rest of it was. Some things are just more beautiful when they're broken. Perhaps we'll be able to identify where it came from and what the whole picture was, but I'm loving the anchor there. Loving the anchor. And talking of anchors, look at this one. Certainly won't be carrying this one home. It's huge. There it is, there's the end of it. Okay, it's right out there, and there's the chain. I wonder what ship it used to be on. I'm sure somebody knows. Well, we've struck lucky again. There is another pipe down here, look, see? Just look at this. And hey, great news, this one does have a maker's mark on either side of the heel. Now I can see a little letter stamped just there, and on the other side there'll be another one, and indeed there is. See if we can see what they say. During sort of this period in the 18th century, it was very common to find maker's marks on the side of the heel. So that looks like an L, and that looks like an I. There we go. Well, I really have lost count now, but I've just seen another pipe bowl here. And so let's see how much stem there is. It is. Let's get her out. Here we are. That looks like a slightly later one. You can tell it's a totally different heel there. It's a really long one. So maybe early 1800s or late 1700s. The tide's on the way in now, and I've just seen over here what looks like a box or something. In the mud. Oh, it's a lighter. It's a lighter. Let's see if it opens. I've just opened it up, and it's full of mud, but it is a lighter. So I'm looking forward to seeing if there's any identifying marks on it. Look, there's some other cute pottery down here. Not so old, but cute nonetheless. Two little piggies. And it says washing day, which is what it will be for me as well when I get back, washing the mud off my clothes. Hi everyone, I'm back in my studio now, and I'm going to do a quick roundup of the objects that featured in today's video. Thank you very much for watching and for accompanying me on my little excursion along the Thames foreshore. There are some objects that I'm going to rack your brains on, but let's start off with the clay pipes. It was a particularly productive day for clay pipes. I felt like I was in a clay pipe plantation. They seem to be popping up all over the place. I think I found about 9, which has got to be a bit of a record in one outing. And some of you do ask, why are there so many pipes on the Thames foreshore? Well, there's several reasons. I mean, they are essentially old-fashioned cigarette butts. They were usually just smoked once or twice and then thrown away. Pipes did have quite a short life expectancy, and when they were broken, again, they were just tossed away. Sometimes they were given away free in taverns and pubs, and people didn't attach the same importance to them as we do now when we're looking at them and finding them and analysing them and studying them. In fact, I'm sure that people would be quite amused if they could see us now poring over these pipes and saying how beautiful and interesting they are. They really weren't valued like that. They were just smoked once or twice. Sometimes people snapped the stems to get a better smoke, and then they just threw them away. So consequently, it's really old litter, which we're now picking up, and which is absolutely fascinating. I never tire of finding clay pipes. Now, the pipes I found the other day are mostly from the early to mid-1700s. You can tell that by the shape. And when I'm looking at the ages of the pipes I find, I use a really useful reference chart called London Clay Tobacco Pipes, the link of which I'll put in the description under this video. And we can see by comparing the sizes and the shapes of the pipes that these pipes here fit very nicely into the category of pipes dated between 1700 and 1770. And indeed, some of them, at least 3 of these here, do have initials on either side of the heel. So they are possible to trace the makers, but the trouble is many of the makers have the same initials, so it's quite a task. But the Pipe Archive does have a really good list of pipe makers and all the initials, so there are hundreds and hundreds of them. So some of these are traceable. So about 7 of the pipes, I'd say, come from the early 1700s, and there are 2 exceptions. Now, one of them here, this is the first exception, and this is a beautiful Masonic pipe, and this would be from the early 19th century. And as you can see, it's faded now to a nice creamy colour, whereas it was quite black when it came out of the mud. And it's covered with these Masonic symbols. Some of them I don't recognise, some of them I do. There's the all-seeing eye of God on one side, and there are the architect's tools as well. There's a square and compass and several other Masonic symbols. So this probably belonged to somebody who was perhaps a member of a local lodge, in this case somewhere near Rotherhithe perhaps, and somehow it ended up in the mud. But by far the most interesting pipe for me that came out of this expedition was this one here, and we can tell by the shape that it's not the same as the others. It is actually slightly later. We can tell by the shape of the bowl and the heel here. This pipe dates to about 1840. And when I got it home and gave it a little wash, I'd noticed that there is a lovely maker's mark here, and it says Shipway Makers. So of course I looked up Shipway and I came across a pipe maker called Thomas Shipway, who was working in Bermondsey at around about that time. But then when I looked at the heel, I noticed that there is some initials on it, C and S, so it couldn't be Thomas Shipway. So a little bit more sleuthing later, and I came across Catherine Shipway, who was Thomas's wife. And when Thomas died in 1840, Catherine Shipway, who lived still in Bermondsey at that time, took over the clay pipe making business from her husband. And Catherine made pipes for many, many years. She also had a linen drapery business, and she was born in 1798, and she died at the ripe old age of 82 in 1878. And if you remember my last video, my fruitless search for the grave of another pipe maker, Jephthah Stubbs, in Ladywell Cemetery, well, funnily enough, Catherine Shipway is buried in the cemetery right next door, in Brockley Cemetery. And she is buried for some reason in unconsecrated ground. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe somebody who's watching might be able to tell me why that could be. But it's very interesting. And in any case, here she lives on, indeed, very much like Jephthah Stubbs and many other clay tobacco pipe makers, because of her initials and her maker's mark there. So here we have a perfect pipe, Shipway Makers, made by Catherine Shipway, probably around about 1840. And now moving on to this button here featuring the large anchor and the two small anchors. I've not found one like this before. And I did find on the Colchester treasure hunting site a very large selection of military and naval buttons, which really helped me to identify it. I found a similar one which dates between 1804 and 1825 and is said to come from a Royal Navy master's uniform. I'm not entirely sure of their role. I think they had something to do with navigating the boat. And so I think perhaps that comes from a RN master's uniform. However, if you know differently, then please let me know. I do love items which feature anchors, so I'm going to get a few of them out and show you a photo of some of the objects I do have with anchors. And indeed, on this piece of pottery here, which I found, may be part of a cup, I think, there's a really lovely swashbuckling scene which features, amongst other things, an anchor and also a partly naked sort of cherub-like figure up at the top, a lady's foot, a painter's palette with brushes and some navigation equipment, so an awful lot going on such a little piece of pottery. Again, I'd love to know what it was in its entirety. That picture really is quite delightful. At the moment I can only use my imagination to think about what was in the rest of it. And then moving on from anchors, but still on the subject of the Royal Navy, now this tiny piece of pottery which I found here, very, very small, with this little wreath and the letter H and I think a Victorian crown. When I got home, I thought it really reminds me of something which I found in the same area maybe a year or so or more ago. And it is this here. And when I compared the two, the initials, or at least the second initial, the H, is exactly the same on the one that's on here. So are these two items related? And if so, what does AH stand for? I know it must have naval connections because of the wreath of acorns around the bottom here, but AH, is that a person or a ship? Does anybody know? Because it seems that these two objects belong to the same person or the same ship, or are definitely linked in some way, so it would be really, really interesting to find out what the connection is and where they come from. And now a few items I could do with your help on. Firstly, another smoking related object, this lighter. It'd be quite nice to know when it dates back to. It's quite crudely made. It's got this seam down the side here. Still actually has some wick here, but the lighting mechanism has broken. But when does that date to? Do you know? And is it like a military issued lighter perhaps? This object here, it's rather pretty. It looks like it's screwed into the top of something, but what could that be? Again, do you know what this is? This rather fun saucer, I mean not terribly old, but the mark on the back is Heathcote. To be honest, I haven't even looked it up. It could be extremely modern. But I'm guessing more kind of maybe 1940s, 1950s. Washing day with little piglets on. We have Mum's keys, but they're not a patch on Nan's keys. They'll go in my key collection, but Nan's keys are still the best keys as far as I'm concerned. And we have also just this nice piece of pottery here, with this lovely scene on. It's always a delight to pull a piece of pottery out of the mud and find a nice scene on it that hasn't seen the light of day for years and years and years. And lastly, I'm just going to show you what is under the glass dome that I found in the River Thames a few weeks ago. And now each week I feature a find in there that I found before I started doing YouTube videos. So, under the glass dome today, there is a message in a bottle. Because of course it's not always old history that we find in the River Thames. There's a lot of new history as well, which we find from time to time. And I've found now over 130 messages in bottles. And this is one of the first that I found. So it's quite a special one. Put this down. And this message in a bottle was written by a little boy called Jack. And it says, I wish I could be a Dino Thunder Power Ranger, the Red Ranger, from Jack Hodges. And miraculously, using social media, I did manage to trace Jack and his family. And having learnt about his wish to be a Dino Thunder Power Ranger, the Red Ranger, I found a suitable costume and sent it to him. And Jack then sent back a picture of himself in his costume, and that was a real delight. I think there's something rather fun and magical about throwing a wish into a river and then actually getting back what you hope for. Although now, several years later, Jack's probably throwing in letters asking for Xboxes and computers. And luckily I haven't found any of those letters. So that is it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you too for all your comments and feedback on my last videos. Please do subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos and if you'd like to see more of the same. And with that said, I'd like to wish you a very, very happy week ahead. And if you know anything at all about any of these objects, or if you have any questions, do put a little note in the comments below this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.